All right. So welcome back. This is Jen broadcasting to you from my little place in the world, wherever that is right now. um, I am here to talk to you today about your emotions. And I know that seems like such a cliche thing. You know, she's a girl. Of course, she wants to talk about her feelings, but I'm not here to talk about my feelings per se. I'm here to talk about your emotions are important. Now, why are your emotions important? Well, first of all, if they weren't important, why would they feel so big? I mean, if it wasn't something really screaming at you, then why would it feel like something screaming at you? See what I'm saying? And secondly, your emotions are part of your consciousness, along with your thoughts and like your behaviors and your ideas and your beliefs. Like everything that you feel like makes up who you are that's not physical, that's part of your consciousness, right? So, according to quantum physics, consciousness actually creates matter. And this has been proven through various different experiences over the years. I think some as early as the 70s, 60s. I'm not even sure, maybe even before that. It's been a little bit since I've researched it, but the core concept being consciousness creates reality, and this has been scientifically proven. Now, whatever emotional state that you hold within your being most consistently is what will attract your experiences to you, right? So if you're chronically depressed or chronically sick or chronically in pain, and that's what you focus on, then that will be what grows in your life, right? Because whatever you focus on grows. These are not new ideas I'm sharing. These are the same ideas presented to you in a way that I understand them. So, how I've managed to apply these concepts to my life, right? And this is basically what this course is going to be about, is helping people to identify and understand the emotions that they're feeling, because I couldn't understand the emotions I was feeling. I thought they were something that was completely out of my control, which is total bullshit, because they are within your control, but you can't be controlling about it. And that sounds contradictory, but as we go through this course, you'll start to understand more and more what I mean. So a huge part of the emotional crisis and the mental health crisis. I mean, look at the collective. There's so many people who are sick, so many people who are struggling with depression and stress and anxiety. This is not normal, quote unquote. This is not the way things are supposed to be. This is an indicator of habits that are unhealthy. You know what I mean? That have been adopted as healthy throughout society. One example being that it's been normalized to be hurtful to the people that we love, right? Because we have been kind of inundated with this idea that our emotions are out of our control. Well, they're only out of our control if we are trying to control them through fear-based means or ego-based means, which is, you know, beating up on yourself or criticizing yourself, belittling yourself. Um, these are things that oftentimes happen to us during our formative years and during our childhood. And we are basically in a very highly suggestible hypnotic state from ages 0 to 7, which is when most of this conditioning takes place. And parenting doesn't come with a manual. So we're all just literally having kids and trying to do the best we can with what we have. But until we understand the subtleties of our own emotional being and our genetics and our karma, as well as those of the collective, then we can't really positively influence our children. We're still at risk of parenting from an unconscious place, which is where things like bad habits, like screaming at your kids, come around. You know what I mean? Like, I used to be that person. You can ask my kids. We've had extensive conversations about this. You know what I mean? I used to sit there and scream at them and hold them responsible for things that were my responsibility, but I was so overwhelmed and so trying to stuff down my emotions and suppress my emotions and not deal with them, that they were just building up and building up and building up. And then every once in a while, they'd have to go, "Brah," you know what I mean? So this is not the best way to go about things. And normalizing bad behavior doesn't help anything. It just makes it more confusing because then we think, like when I was with my ex-husband, you know, I normalized the abuse. The abuse I thought was my fault because because I felt like his feelings were my responsibility, and he would fly off the handle for whatever reason, if he had a bad day at work or whatever, you know what I mean? And he would scare the shit out of me. Well, that's not my responsibility. That's his responsibility, you know? And rather than holding the person who is behaving that way responsible, we have normalized making excuses, right? We've normalized making excuses and we've normalized kind of treating people like they're less than people. I hear a lot of women, and you know, I don't get along with a whole ton of women because my experiences in the past have indicated that, you know, a lot of us are very, very lost, um, especially when it comes to dealing with each other, because there's a lot of like cattiness and competitiveness and things like that, right? And jealousy. Um, but a lot of women talk about training their man, right? Like he's a dog or something. And that really always kind of bothered me because that means he's kind of less than human. Now, if you enter into a relationship looking at the other person like they're less than human, what do you think that's going to do? On a subconscious level, you know, that's going to make you kind of resentful and condescending toward that person. You may feel like you're responsible for them, which also builds resentment. And it just generally tends to grow into toxic codependency. So at least this is my experience, and I've observed, you know. I'm not saying this is always the case. However, it it's important for us as individuals to be able to understand ourselves, so that way we can explain to the other person, okay, well, listen, you know, I know it's not an excuse. However, the reason why I had this outburst or the reason why I had this panic attack is because blah, 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 blah triggered me into this and this response that was from the past. Once you can make those connections and start recognizing your triggers, you will be able to discern between emotions that are appropriate for the situation versus emotions that are old and need to be processed and released versus emotions that come from the ego, right? And the emotions that come from the ego tend to be the ones that are full of pride, blaming others for your own stuff, you know, and generally not wanting to look at your own shortcomings, if that makes sense. Okay, so there's why your emotions are important. I want to talk a little bit more about conditioning because that's where a lot of our conflicting emotions come from. So if you've been conditioned one way and deep down you feel another way, then it can feel like a battle between your head and your heart. This is usually when logic and emotion completely clash. And you have to figure out what you truly believe and what you truly stand for in order to make the right decision. And if you're still confused about that, then there's a good chance that you'll make the wrong decision in order to draw forth the lesson again on a louder basis. See what I'm saying? So it all ties in together and it all plays in together. So to get in touch with your emotions, some of the questions you can ask yourself are, am I in touch with my emotions? Or do I suppress my emotions? How do I usually process? What does my processing of emotions look like? Do I react or overreact in the moment and then have to apologize later? And if so, do I usually find that it helps the situation or does it hurt the situation? Now, there are more questions that you can ask yourself, and these are just basically to get you started and get you thinking and get you considering and get you kind of looking at things in this way. Tips to help you process your emotions. Um, Non-reactivity is a great practice. So if you can hold off your reactions in the moment and allow yourself time to feel whatever you're feeling and identify where it might be coming from, breathe, and then respond after you've had a minute to kind of gather yourself rather than just flying off the handle, you know? One of the exercises that helps a lot for me and for everybody that I've basically introduced it to is it's called circular breathing. And basically what you do is you breathe in through your nose for the count of either 4, 5, or 6, or whatever number is comfortable for you, to where you take a nice full breath, and then you hold for a count of 4 or 6 or whatever, and then you exhale through your mouth for the same count. And you can do this anywhere. It helps if you sit up a little bit straight and have your shoulders back a little bit. And if you really want to influence your mood via your body's physiology, you can send happy signals to your mind just by smiling. So, knowing this, you can instantly pretty much lift your mood no matter what the situation or where you are. Yesterday, my daughter had a dentist appointment, and she is terrified of needles. She we had to reschedule that appointment like 3 or 4 times. And yesterday I told her, I reminded her about this breathing exercise. And I said, don't forget to breathe and count in your head. And that was enough. That was enough, among, a couple other little things, to help her get through getting numbed, with the shot, with the needle, and actually getting things done that she needed to get done. So if and my daughter has some anxiety and depression issues. So if it helps her and if it helps me after all this crap that we've seen, then it can help anybody, I guarantee it. So the other thing is to express your emotions in some kind of constructive way. Um, Either through creativity or by exercising. If you really feel the need to go out and scream, then go out and scream, but don't take it out on any other living beings. This is key. Do not initiate force against another living being, and you'll be fine. You'll be perfectly fine. Um, Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now. Let's see. Non-judgment. Yeah. So just like non-reactivity, if you find yourself thinking judgmental thoughts about a circumstance or a person, then you can shut that down in the moment and be like, hey, excuse me, what is that all about? Why am I thinking like that? You know what I mean? um, Old stuff might come up, and that pops up sometimes, right? So because I used to weigh over 300 pounds, now now that I'm thinner and I'm like caring about my body and I'm exercising and things like that, sometimes little thoughts will pop up, about other people who happen to not be in the same place on their journey as I am. And it's very not nice. So when this happens, when I have little judgments coming up, you know what I mean, either against myself or other people, I stop and I think, why? Why am I thinking this? Right? So in the case of, people who are out of shape or have let themselves go, I know that I'm really judging myself for how I let myself go in the past. And it has nothing to do with this other person or their journey, because I know nothing about that person or their journey. See? And even if I do, it's just the tip of the iceberg. And I have zero place to judge, really. And I don't have the information that I need, right? So, what is it that I'm judging myself on that I'm suddenly projecting onto other people, right? Now, when you first start doing this work, an admission like that to yourself is going to make your ego go, "Wah! No, it's totally wrong. Fuck you." And it's going to fight you. It's going to completely fight you. However, that's because you're finally trying to align your soul with your beliefs, right? You're trying to figure out where the real you is instead of the conditioned you. And your ego protests because your ego is the one who organized all this conditioned information. And look at all that work going down the drain. I could imagine being a little butthurt. You know what I mean? So these are just some things to keep in mind, and to remember and to remind you that emotions are important. Your emotions are important. They help create your reality, your daily experience, and once you learn how to properly process them, your life will be much easier. It won't actually be easier because you'll still have the same stuff. You'll still have stress. You'll still have stuff coming up. However, it won't seem nearly as big as what it does when you're unsure of how to process your emotions. Because remember, we're taught to suppress. So we stuff it down, stuff it down, stuff it down. And then all the emotions that come up seem extra big because they've been built up so much. You know what I mean? So once you learn how to process in the moment, it'll be a lot easier because you'll only be handling one thing at a time or processing one thing at a time or, a handful of things at a time. You won't be working through months or years of suppressed emotions. So let's get started, shall we? I hope you're ready. And even if you're not enrolling in the class, that's completely fine. I plan to release enough material to get you started on your journey regardless. I highly recommend doing research based on what you are feeling and defining what you are feeling. And that way you can actually make progress. And I also highly recommend documenting your progress. Write in a journal, write your breakthroughs down, write down anything that strikes you as important, because this will help you validate yourself and get away from the desperate feeling of need and loneliness for another person. I hope that this is useful for you guys, and I've got to go and take care of something right now, but I will see you in the next video, and I hope that you enjoyed this content. Thanks so much.
Do you see beauty or do you see pain? Oh, whatever you feel is what comes back again. Oh,
Thank you so much for being here, my friends. Namaste. As you remember and reconnect with the light of unconditional love within your soul, don't forget to enjoy your life and have some fun along the way. Fall into the unknown.
fall with me into the unknown. Let's break free, learn how to let go.
Download this track and other fun bonuses when you defuse the love bomb at www.innerworkcoaching.life.